And for my presentation of work, I'm going to do the performance part of it, that it is the first part of my mock viva. So the way that this will work is, this will take about half an hour, and then there'll be questions, and I really want the questions to focus really on the work, on the performance work rather than the research. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah, and a little plug is that if anyone's going to Krakow, that's where I'm next. I'll be performing at the bookstore on Sunday. The thing is that they don't know that yet. No, that's not. Anyway, so get comfortable. And thank you so much for coming. When I met her, it turned me inside out, like light was being pulled from shadow. Only they could never be separated. And I understood, but couldn't put it into words then, that rebirth is not unusual, but something that happens every day, whenever elementals meet. That rebirth is the rule and not the exception. Dubek explained, so that feeling you get when you're lost watching waves, or feeling the rhythms of the breath of someone sleeping next to you, that feeling, the things that escape through the cracks that hold reality together. To me, art can never capture this, and bad art thinks it has captured this, and good art tries to capture this and fails. And my favorite, my very favorite, is when art captures that sense of the impossibility of the capture. Getting ready to go far away. The dog, spirited, inspired, a spirit dog, grabs broken things, things dotted with blood, and puts them into my pack. I don't need those things, I say. Ha-ha, ha-ha, says the dog. When you travel to homelands, the first thing you pack are those things of grieving. But they're broken, I say. They're not broken. They work, she says. They work like a charm. That song of the sea that sings to me, you will go into the world and you fall, you will fall. You fall through holes in the world and you will die. And so will everyone you love. You will lose your father, and you will be the father, or the mother, or the lover that someone will lose. And it will happen again and again and again. This makes most of you nervous, so you try to get numb or acquire things. But if all you acquire is attention to your breath, you will start to see and feel the orchestration under it all, and you will come to know the things that mermaids know. I showed my daughter pictures of the moon before she could even speak. When she saw it for real, for the first time, she was riding on my shoulders, wiggling like crazy, and she said the word moon over and over. I heard about my loves, New York, for over a year, and when I saw it through her eyes for the first time, that moon that existed only in my head became real, and we were walking on it. I am indebted to this sense of mystery, and the way to pay the debt is by waking up and falling asleep in that same sense of mystery, as if every place on earth is the fruition of a dream our ancestors had for us. Note to self, release new Afro-Cuban exercise video, Pilates of the Caribbean. Someone once told you something and it wasn't true, but you believed them. You can't believe the living. Like you, they are always confused by all the mirrors. But when you remember the dead, you hear things. And when you listen, the dead tell us who and where we were, who and where we will be. And that's when we remember who and where we are. Wake up in warm rain on a day when you are made of clay, just soft enough to be formed into the thing you have been becoming, almost ready to be put to the fire. There were lots of stars, and I tried to follow them all, and I liked the sudden ones and the chaotic ones, or the twinkling ones the best. And I was always trying to write my name and our stories on them in some secret place. But when I stopped following anything, I started to notice that they had been writing on me, writing a story on me. And it didn't burn me, but set me on fire. Not a sudden fire, nor chaotic, nor twinkling, but a soft and steady white light. Wild in the eyes, soft in the heart, we get bored to tell each other stories. Too much city and there's too much information and not enough knowledge to funnel that information. Go back to the woods and remember what you were taught. Go back to the woods. Learn how to listen to plants and stones. Go back to the woods. Keep going back. There never was a lack of knowledge. The very last thing my grandfather told my grandmother was the beginning of the love story that I would one day swim in. When it freezes and death is painting in mundane colors, death only has one idea. The body is a tired muscle and the mind a rusty machine. There is an old trick, older than money, where you can look into the center of things and say thank you, and it doesn't even have to be heartfelt. It will work no matter what. And that's when the things that are frozen start to melt. And the world you miss and love, that world, you find that it has been hiding, shy, because it is falling in love with you, waiting for the thank you that makes the mystery visible. The grief for the ones who came before, for the ones who left the weave of the fabric much too soon. It turns into an open heart that hears the love song of the dead or the living. Take care of each other, feed each other in dark times, and make more light. It seems as though everyone eventually starts to look a little bit like Leonard Cohen. The shore to the sea, oh, what you do to me. I love what you've done, what you're doing, and what you're going to do. And it doesn't matter if you don't believe me, just look at me. It's written all over me. Oh, what you do to me. In the shadow of the moon, I was thinking about the loss of our dogs, the dogs of our fathers, and forgetting that magic happens in the dark or in the light. In the light of the moon, old friends, they come back from under the lip of the sea, either in the shadow and under the light of the moon. There is always more that's hidden. And I always hear dogs barking, even if I can't see them. When gorgeous fairies come dancing on your doorstep, asking for a kiss before midnight, open the door. I'm talking to the moon on the night before the longest day of the year. It's been getting brighter and brighter for months, and this is just impossible. This has been wonderful and terrible, I say, because I want to be diplomatic with the moon, because the moon is moody sometimes. But can we just have a little more shadow? The moon is looking thoughtful, and the moon says, this is in my head, it's not like a real voice, I mean, I'm not crazy. The moon says, yes, I think these things could be arranged. On the train, staring without getting caught, trying to find out if anyone here has a clue of what it was like to walk before the war. Woke up fevered from this place, on the banks of where we go back to the place we were before. There's a holding area. Everyone waits, and all of the things you lost in your life are brought back to you. The ones who are the most attached to things are the most sentimental, and they cry, not because they missed the things, but because they realize that someone or something was paying attention to their sadness after all. The ones who have lost touch, they cry too, not because of the things, but because their memories have come back to them, and they missed memory the most. And then there are ones who have stayed unattached, but still managed to stay in the world, all the way in the world, and they do not cry at all. They are not given anything back because they never lost anything, because they understand that they already have everything in the world that they could possibly need. This year, the ending year, brought up old crimes, the oldest crimes, enough to stir up the bones, the oldest bones, from the bottom of the ocean. And those bones, the oldest bones, float to the surface, but can't keep us from drowning. They can't. But if we listen to those old bones, the oldest bones, they teach us how to swim. Grandparents, their children, and the children's children, all watching the waves, watching the bones rolling in the waves, and remembering. Now there are monsters. Now the children are seeing monsters. And the parents see themselves. And the grandparents just start weeping. Those monsters were supposed to be gone by the time the grandchildren came into the world. But here they are. They're right here. They're still right here. There is a terrible wind that won't stop. And we can't pretend that this is not history writing on our very bones. For every life stopped short, there's a frantic and furious love that is released into the world, that contains all the unfulfilled tenderness of the years that were supposed to be. Outrage is the response to the call of those love songs from the dead. We can't pretend our children didn't see this, but we have to act so that their children don't. It will turn you inside out and make you want to open all the doors and windows and make you want to hide inside a cave outside the city. And it will break all of your mirrors and erase all of your memories. It will haunt you in the middle of the night and in the middle of the day. And it will stop your heart and shatter it. But there will come a day when love finally makes you calm. As long as you are able to fall in love with the theme that is your life, every variation is magic when it plays. Having chased a falling star was not enough. We eventually caught it and ate it, and we glowed from the eyes, and we glowed from our centers, and the price of eating a star was this. Our hearts are softer, and we are prone to weeping and laughing. We give ourselves away, and we are not so very unique. Unimaginable beauty does not surprise us, every moment being inside a lunar cycle of constant revelation. Remember that feeling you had for the first time when you were riding in the car with your parents going up north for the first time after a long summer, and you all stopped for gas, and when you got out of the car, the cool air and that smell hit you for the first time. And do you remember when it was Monday and it was August and it was this morning and you had that same feeling, and it wasn't for the first time, except it's always for the first time? And repetitions and reminders of the first time always feel like the first time, and maybe that means that this is really always the first time. This time, this one here is always the first time. The sound of the storms and then the smell of wet desert and wet pavement. It brings you back that time. You were 16, standing in a parking lot with your friends, clothes and riuniti d'ambrusco, and you were anxious. Where would you be in a year from now? You don't know how this works. You were anxious. And you remember now like you remember then. Everything is about to change. But we need to watch out for each other, whoever is we. We are all children of water, and we need to watch each other's backs. You spend the first part of this thing trying to navigate a sea that you don't understand. And now, here, you don't know how this works. But you know that you aren't trying to find your way back home. You're aiming toward getting lost in the ocean and finding home there, but rather here. Always here, right here. These two philosophical dogs sitting on the edge of the sea watching a storm come in. And one says, this is all one version of reality that we can choose to accept or not accept. And we can decide not to play by the rules of this particular game. And the other one says, I think we will both be much more interesting in a few minutes when that version of reality is threatening to drown us. You're back in that city 20 years later. All of the traces of you are hard to find, but they're there. There are other versions of your circles in the cafes and the galleries and waiting on the corners. When you look for familiar things start to show traces, but this won't be easy. You have to decide which traces to follow, based on the ghosts that haunt you the most, or the gestures that feel incomplete. A love song from the dead to the living, and a love song from the living to the dead. Bright as three suns, dark as the other side of the moon. When I think of you, my heart beats faster. I'm sitting in the dark, where I can't tell the ghosts from the living, watching my dreams and feeling like I am witnessing something. Not the beginning or the end of the world, but something far outside of that space where such things even matter. Some of us want to make art to bring light to hidden angles that make sense to us. And we want to be as specific as possible because someone else might one day say, that thing you saw, I've seen it too. I've been there too. And I felt the way you felt when you were there. Because this is either a dream or based on a dream that we have. And if we're living in it, then everything we ever wanted is not so far from reach. Love is standing perilously close to the edge of the world. Love is the breath between the moment and the narration of the moment. Love is a tea ceremony, a furry thing crawling in through the dog door, a cracked cup and a playlist of 80s fitness hits. Love wakes you up or keeps you up or touches your forehead until you sleep. A dream and a grave and a story about you. A falling star when it's already sunrise, that slits open a rock like a knife made of lightning and gives birth to a snake born whispering two dead languages, where it could be brunch in a cafe with sesame in the name, and they only serve herbal tea and soy milk, and it would still be all right. And every time I walk into a room with her, I feel a little bit taller. Love's definitions keep adding to the story of the first love, the one where the star loved the idea of us so much it just exploded. Remember that. I mean, I remember that. I mean, that star remembers us. Now I remember something about the light here, the water so close here, and the almost rain here, that makes the line so thin, the line between life and poetry.